All right, I am live on YouTube. We're going to get into ways you can boost your immunity system, talk about some actual medical facts with a medical professional, and give you guys some good information about what's going on, how you can boost your immunity system, all that kind of stuff. But before we get into Dr. Steve Maddox, I got to drop the intro one time.
I don't need nothing else. Every time I'm with you, yo, it's something else. It's a fact, and it's nothing else. Got your hand out, you don't even need a help. Ooh, I don't need nothing else. Every time I'm with you, yo, it's something else. It's a fact, and it's nothing else. Got your hand out, you don't even need a help. Ooh, that's right. I don't need nothing else. That's right.
What's going on? It's Ruslan with KingsDreamENT.com. This channel exists to encourage, empower, inspire you to live out God's dream. And that looks all kinds of different ways. We talk about music, marketing, Fan Love Friday. We talk about health, fitness, wellness. Of course, we talk about God. And right now is a pivotal time in the history of our country. There's a lot of misinformation out there on YouTube. I just want to do my part to bring you guys some solid information from a solid source of someone that I've known for almost a decade, to give you guys some very practical stuff we could be doing, we should be doing, who we should be listening to, what's some stuff we could probably not be listening to. And if you're in this with us live right now, do me a favor, like this video, hit that share button. I think you guys are going to get a lot of value from Dr. Steve Maddox. And we're going to be talking about why we need to be quarantining, ways to boost your immunity system, staying healthy, explaining how this can have a ripple effect on multiple people, even if you don't necessarily have terrible symptoms. So let me bring Dr. Maddox in. What's up, brother? How you doing?
What's up? How we doing, y'all?
Can you just briefly introduce yourself? We met through music. You were a supporter of a group I was a part of way back, almost a decade ago, called The Breaks. Then we subsequently met in person and hung out. We stayed the night at your house. Yeah, introduce who you are and what you do so they kind of get some context.
All right. Well, I'm Stephen Maddox, and I am a pediatrician. I live in Connecticut, and I've been practicing for about 15 years, started in New York, ended up out here in Connecticut. I'm a father, husband, got 4 kids. Yeah, I love what I do, you know. Glad to be part
busy
of this.
Man. Busy man.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been a hip hop head for a while, hence how we got connected. You're from the culture, and now you're a doctor, which is obviously very inspiring should be inspiring to people that maybe don't come from, a world where they know a ton of doctors. I don't know any doctors. You're the only doctor I know. And the times I be feeling like you're like my son's personal doctor, because I always sex you stupid questions about just like the most trivial stuff sometimes. But what just on a broad scale, like I got specific questions for you, but just very broad strokes, what is your general consensus about what we're seeing happening with this whole situation in the media, the healthcare industry worldwide? What are your thoughts as a doctor professional?
With coronavirus specifically, you're saying, or just in general?
Yeah, I was trying not to say that word so that we don't get demonetized, but yeah, you're good. Go for
it. So with the current situation, I think we are facing something that is something that our generation has no experience with, probably hasn't happened for a couple of generations, where a totally new infectious process rears its head into human society. So every day we're learning new things about what this will do and how it affects people. So, I think it's new territory for everybody. It's new territory for all the World Health Organization, the CDC, the federal governments across the world, state governments locally here. So I think the learning curve is very steep right now, I'd say.
So because it's something new, because it's something we haven't seen, people keep comparing it to the flu. They keep comparing it to these other things. And some of it is like, listen, just because the ball may have been dropped in other areas and not helping other things spread doesn't mean we should drop the ball in this, which is more lethal than some of these other things that we deal with seasonally?
Yeah, I think the issue with this coronavirus is, unlike something like, say, Ebola or something more severe where there's a rapid onset and rapid destruction of your body, there's a large percentage of the people who get this who will be fine, who will have a cold, who will maybe have flu-like symptoms for a week and then go about their lives. But there's just a significant portion of the community that is at extremely high risk. So we'll have a lot of people who do okay, a lot of people who get a little bit sicker, and then 20% of people or so who are very ill. And it's those 20% that we have to worry about the most. So that's why social isolation and distancing yourself and quarantine is such a negative word when you think about it. But that's why this stuff is the most important. It's not so much for the younger generations who are very healthy, it's for their sicker relatives or their neighbors or their coworkers who will end up in ICUs.
Yep.
And across the board in hospitals, you only have limited capacity for severely ill people. So that what you see happening in these other countries like Italy is that they've maxed out their capacity to take care of those severely ill people.
Yeah.
Which is why we want to decrease spread of it.
Yeah.
Because that's what we can, which is, keeping your distance.
So let me ask you this. This is something that I haven't got a clear answer on, okay? And it seems like it could be a strong possibility. Are people who are generally healthy asymptomatic to this thing? Because it seems like the guys in the NBA that are getting it, it seems like a lot of the celebrities that have gotten it are asymptomatic. And, is that your consensus? Because I can't find a clear answer. Like, are we asymptomatic if we're healthy for the most part?
I would say asymptomatic is a little too, how do you put it? We'll say most people are probably minimally symptomatic or have less symptoms or think they just have a bad cold or something. I think there's very few people, especially in the adult populations, with no symptoms at all who don't have it. But again, it's hard. This is all new. We don't know. We're not going to know the statistics on this probably for a couple of years when you think about it.
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah, but what it seems like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, again, like I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but what it seems like is because a percentage are asymptomatic, or at least asymptomatic for a period of 10 days, or get a cough, get a mild flu symptoms, that because those people don't know they have it, or don't ever show symptoms that they have it, and then they spread it to 10 people, who then spread it to 10 people, who then spread it to 10 people, then that is why this thing is so dangerous. Because you can have it, not know you have it, have a mild cough, mild, cold, and then you're spreading it to 10 people who spread it to 10 people, and then the people who can die from it, people with respiratory issues, people with health complications, can like really be affected by it. Is that like a fair gauge of why this is so dangerous?
Yeah, I think that's what makes this unique versus other viral infections which have more dramatic presentation in the beginning or earlier on. Like with the flu, you're going to get sick within probably 3 days. You're going to have the body aches and chills, and you'll probably isolate yourself naturally.
Yep.
Whereas with this, you could go on for a week with a little sore throat, a little cough, a low fever, and not realize that it's something more serious, and spread it to a lot of people that way.
Yeah. So it seems like the good news is that if you're healthy, the majority of us who are healthy, who are fit, who are eating okay, are going to be okay. We might get some mild flu symptoms, but that's the good news. The bad news is this mug might take 11 days before we even know we have anything, right? And I think that's the give and take, and that's a very interesting place to be with a virus, because like you said, the flu, the cold, you show symptoms rather quickly if you get the cold or the flu. Within a day or two?
Flu could be up to a week, but usually most people, day 3, you know, after exposure, day 4,
Yeah.
they're starting to get sick, you know?
Yeah.
And the best news about this virus is actually that there's very little data worldwide that shows children are getting sick in large numbers.
Yeah.
So that's great. That's
Yes.
great for the future. But it's also another reason why social, you know, isolation is important, because you have this large group of barely symptomatic people in terms of the youth who can then spread it to the sicker people. So it's a great news for us, I think, going forth, that this doesn't seem to be affecting children as severely, but it also makes it a lot harder to know how to manage.
Yeah.
Which is why, you know, my kids have been home from school for over a week now. And it's difficult. But I can understand that, not so much for them, it's for their really sick classmates or for their teachers or for, you know, everyone related to them that we have to, you know, isolate them at this point.
That's good. How does this virus spread? Is it airborne? Because I'm hearing conflicting reports. I'm hearing some people say it is airborne. Some people say it's not. I'm hearing some people say, be careful at the gas station. Like I pumped gas yesterday. I wore gloves, right? Like, how does this freaking thing spread? Because I'm hearing conflicting reports.
All right. So first you have to know, we don't fully know. But from what we've gathered so far, from what I've been told from the CDC and from, you know, other organizations, that it's what's called droplet spread. So airborne in the classic sense means that the person infected enters a room and they're just breathing and they're spreading it. That's something like measles, you know. Measles is the air. That's why it makes measles so scary, because a person with measles could infect like 20 people at once and just by entering a room. So with this, a droplet means that it is kind of airborne, but airborne in the sense that when I cough or when I sneeze, or if I spit and the droplets of liquid from my nose or from my mouth get on you, and then you touch your face or your nose, you can get it that way. So, and I've heard a lot of conflicting data about how long it can stay alive on surfaces.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask next, was how long can it stay alive on surfaces?
Yeah, I don't knock you for being as precautious as you can, especially something like a gas station or the grocery store. But you're most likely going to get this from close contact with someone over a long period of time. I don't, you know, like I said, I'm honestly not an expert on this, and I'm not quoting any data, but I don't think that you're going to get it from a cereal box in the supermarket, you know.
Got it.
Gas station, that's different. There's multiple people touching that all day long. So yeah, it probably makes good sense to wipe it down when you go, or to make sure you're just very hand conscious. Yeah. Before you touch your face, you know. Yep. Which is probably the most important thing now for people, is just we have to be a little more cautious with our hands and how we greet each other, how we, you know, you don't realize it, but most people touch their face all the time.
I'm touching my face right now, and I just didn't even realize it.
You're gonna shave your beard. You're gonna shave your beard after.
Okay. So yesterday, the Surgeon General came out that in the next week this thing is going to be bad, and this was on the back end of a news report of beaches being packed in California and Florida. I'm so disgusted with California people right now. You people in Florida, I don't expect anything less than what you guys going to the beach and not listening. But California, like, why the heck are we at the, like, it's so frustrating. Do you think these people who are at the beach right now, when California is on and it's called a lockdown, but it's pretty much like they're asking us not to go out besides for essential things. People are going out anyway. Like, your opinion. We just explained why it's important to self-quarantine, right? I think that's pretty self-explanatory at this point. Do you think these people are not aware that the virus, like, do you think there's a lack of information out there? Or do you think they just don't care?
You know what? I think that I'm not going to make a definitive statement on that per se, but I think you often see, we live in an information age, and people are overloaded with information in a way. The information is there. Every time I pick up my phone, or turn on my Apple TV, I can click on the link and there's a guidelines for what to do,
Yeah.
But we live in an age where you can get access to whatever information you want whenever you want it. So a lot of people write their own narratives for their life. And if they can find someone that says something that is more appealing to them, then they'll grab onto that. But I think part of it also with this is that because these especially the younger people, are not going to get that sick from it. It's like if something's not physically affecting you, I think it's human nature to not take it as seriously. Which is why we always have to tell people, don't just think of yourself, think of your mother, think of your grandmother, think of your uncle, think, your sister, or think of everyone else.
Yeah.
When you're doing what you're doing and how that's going to affect them.
And so you're thinking as part, it's not going to affect them, and part maybe misinformation out there about this thing. And we can get into some of the specific questions I have about some of the misinformation, but you think it's both. You're thinking some people just seek out the information they want and keep it pushing, and other people are like, I don't care, I'm not going to see my grandparents anytime anyway, so I'm going to go about my life.
Yeah, or I'm not going to go hard on people like that and say that they're being malicious, but I really think that people think that they themselves a lot of times are impervious. They see something on television or they read a report about it, like, well, that's not me. That's not going to happen to me. Especially that's a big part of, I think, of American culture, where we often consider ourselves unique in the world. And I think this experience is very humbling for us because these kind of outbreaks happen a lot in other places that are more populated, which is why, those other countries are like, boom, let's deal with it right now. This is a very new experience for us as a culture where we kind of think of ourselves as invincible in a way.
Yeah, it's good. Can you explain this idea? We've heard it shared a couple times. Hopefully everybody's heard it. This idea of flattening the curve, because you are in the healthcare industry. I asked you, like, hey, do you think you could potentially be impacted by this if it really gets bad, and what we're really trying to avoid here? Again, it sounds like, don't quote me on this and don't quote Dr. Maddox, but it sounds like the majority of healthy people who are younger, people who are fit, are going to be fine. They may even be asymptomatic. But what will happen if we don't slow this spread down and if we don't flatten the curve? Can you just explain that concept? Because I think people saw the chart, but they still don't quite understand of how that could really impact the healthcare industry.
So with infections, especially I'm going to say some viral infections such as coronavirus or influenza virus, they tend to have seasonal variations. All right. So there's that aspect. You combine that with the fact that you have a new virus that no one's been exposed to, you get this kind of like rapid rise in infection rate because it's a perfect storm. Maybe it's the right time of year. No one's ever had it. So few people have seen it that there's not going to be any herd immunity or natural immunity to it. So it's going to rise rapidly. But then you get to a point eventually where depending on what kind of measures you take, either technological advancement, say there's medication for it, like with swine flu, that's when Tamiflu came out back in 2009 or something like that. Or how else you put it? There's going to be a natural, if you let it go totally, right? There's going to be a natural number of people who are just immune to it because they just are, or asymptomatic because they are. And then there's going to be a percentage of people that are doomed to have severe symptoms from it. And the curve, meaning that the rate of infection would eventually top off at some point. But the fear with something like this is that it could be more like, instead of being like influenza, standard influenza, it could be like Spanish flu, where you have 50, 100 million people get it. Nobody wants to see that before it dies down. So by social isolation, you're letting the virus run its course, but you're decreasing the number of people who are exposed to it with the hope that it kind of tops off way below it would if we were just all living our normal free lives. And that's what they mean by flattening the curve, that you want to flatten the rate of infection at a much lower plateau than what is possible by just letting people live their life. So if everyone just goes about their business, say, we'll just pick a random number. So, 25 million people might die. But if we do this, then we can keep that number way lower. We keep the infection rate way lower. And then we'll know what happens after this. Does this become a winter virus? Is this something this occurs all year round? Or this is something that never happens again? We just don't know yet.
Yeah, and so what you're saying is if we let people do whatever they want, this thing could peak, right? And there's not enough hospital beds available, right? There's not enough resources, respirators available, so that a certain percentage of people who are healthy may not be that affected, but they're going to impact people who have complicated issues, autoimmune disease, compromised autoimmune disorder, so on and so forth. They then can, our emergency rooms get overwhelmed. There's not enough hospital beds. There's not enough respirators. And then that is where the 25 million spike, because it's not that like we could have saved people, but we could save more people if that's spread out over time. Am I
That's just a made up number, y'all. We just picked a number out the blue. So.
Yeah. Don't freak out.
Don't freak out. But I think Italy is good evidence of that they just hit capacity. Like they just can't take care of the people that they need to take care of because of how fast it spread. And possibly, I don't know what was socially going on in Italy, but it seemed from what I've heard, they just weren't adhering to much guidelines in terms of social isolation.
Yeah. And it seems
you see the other countries in Europe are now locking stuff down very fast.
Yeah.
Like even more than we are here. So they're obviously taking that seriously too.
Let's talk about some of the different conflicting information on there. I did a reaction clip to London Real, who's in Britain, and initially it seemed like Britain was gonna move towards a herd immunity, which is like let's let it spread so that the whatever variations of it and people become immune to it. What are your thoughts on the whole like herd immunity? If you can kind of break that down, and do you think that can work?
I think if we take that kind of Darwinian approach to infections, so to speak, nature has unchecked. Will we don't want that, obviously, since we believe in medicine, we believe in prevention, and we believe in intervention when people get sick. We don't just let stuff run its course. I think that, I don't know, it's hard for me. Obviously I'm conflicted. I'm an MD, so I don't think that I should, if I can heal someone, I should heal them, or I should seek to find ways to heal them.
Yes. Prevent
them from getting sick at all costs.
Yeah.
To just let it run its course means that, a lot of people die.
Yeah, it's good.
Could be prevented.
Yeah. So that was the thing about the herd immunity that I was like, man, this doesn't sound like a good idea, and he's like out and about in London and taking pictures by himself on the subway. And I was just like, bruh, like this doesn't sound smart. Okay, here's another one. This is kind of a funny one. Did you see there's a meme going around in Florida? One of the senators or local officials were like, 135 degree heat heals it. And then it cut to a bunch of people shooting with blow dryers and trying to put blow dryer. and then one of my friends sent me like a video of like somebody like trying to get smoke like hot air into their nostrils, and so they're like boiling water and like breathing in like hot air. Like is there any truth to this idea that heat kills it? Because if there is some truth to it, then maybe as the weather, outside of the funny like blow dryers in your face thing, but like if heat does kill it, will we see it mitigate as it gets hotter and hotter and hotter?
I think we have to see what it does. Like we know that there are winter viruses, rhinovirus, influenza, things of that nature that thrive in colder temperatures. Mm-hmm. It would be nice. I hope there's some kind of seasonal variation to this, and that it's just not all year, all the time. Mm-hmm. But I highly don't recommend you blow dry your mouth and your nose. it's that is.
I had to ask. You guys will see this thing. I saw it on TikTok yesterday. Me and my wife were cracking up. Okay, let me think. Explain just for the people a second time. Like, explain what we should be doing.
We should be taking every precaution not to put other people at risk.
Amen.
And this being spread by contact, being spread by droplets of sneezing, coughing.
Yeah.
That means literally you distancing yourself, unfortunately, until the rate of infection drops to a point that the prevalence is low enough that we can go back to our normal lives.
Yeah.
So as to what policies governments, local, state, federal, take to achieve that, that's the real debate, because human nature is such that we're going to want to do what we want to do.
Yeah.
But let's all, regardless of what the policy is, just use a little common sense. If you know you have colds and you want to go visit your grandma and you have a sore throat and you have, like maybe you don't FaceTime with her or call her on the phone. Or if you have to be out and you're having symptoms, put a face mask on, or if you're so worried about contracting it, get some gloves if you can find them. And cover yourself, wash your hands a lot, be much more like I assume most people wash their hands after they go to the bathroom, but wash your hands when you come in from the car, wash your hands periodically during the day, just because, or if you're at the store, grab your little hands, either clean yourself, keep moving.
Yeah, that's good. Anything else?
And I'm usually more of I'll be honest, I'm more of a laid back with that. Yes, wash your hands after going to the bathroom, stuff like that, of course. But up to now, I wasn't the guy who was at the supermarket with the wipes and wiping down the shopping cart. I was like, oh, that's crazy. But now maybe you want to wipe down the shopping cart, until things change.
That's good. The thing that we're finding out is that what worked in South Korea is, it seems like because they got more tests out as quickly as possible so they could find out who had it, who didn't have it, that helped mitigate it. Because again, what this whole potentially people being asymptomatic or having minimal symptoms and spreading it, they got as many people tested as they could. I think at a rate of like 4 to 1 of what the United States is doing, like crazy, like how well and then that was able to mitigate it. And they're almost getting back to a place of normal because of that, versus like the ball being dropped in Italy and them not testing people at the rate that they should have. So the reality is, unfortunately, we can't control that. Like, we can't control how the government gets testing kits out. But that seems like one of the biggest variables about this thing mitigating is get as many people checked as possible. But we can control what we can control. And that's why I love what you said, hey, wash your hands after the car. Like, control what you can control. What are your thoughts? I did a video, and I don't know if you saw the Joe Rogan interview, the doctor that was on there right as this thing was taking off, and he predicted this thing and wrote a book about it that just came out. So the timing of the book is crazy. And he was saying people with underlying health complications, smokers in China, were found to be like 70%. The men who smoke were 70% more likely to get really bad symptoms. Morbidly obese people, right? And then there's people with underlying respiratory issues and underlying health complications. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, and I got flack for it because people were like, yo, you're saying obese people are more likely to. No, I'm not saying obese people more. I'm saying if you get it and you're obese, you're going to have a higher risk of complications. If you get it and you're a smoker, you're going to have a higher risk of complications, right? So my thing would be like, yo, this is a great time to lose weight, quit smoking, get fit, and boost your immunity system. Can you kind of speak to that as a doctor who is more smart and more qualified than me?
I don't know if I'm more smart. You're pretty smart, bro. I think that we live in a culture that is heavily reliant on intervention medicine instead of prevention.
Wow.
I think that that is part of who we are as Americans. For whatever reason, that's how our society functions. And the medical care reflects that aspect of our society. Mm-hmm. But with anything, if you are healthy, if you are eating the best that you can, if you are avoiding, things that can cause permanent damage to your vital organs, you will always fare better under other types of stress, be they infection, be it, cataclysmic natural disasters. That's why it's important for us to always strive for fitness. It is not to shame anyone at any given state that they might be in at this very moment. But the reality is that, and as it relates to something like this, which causes mortality by destroying your lungs, if you have things that have already decreased your lung capacity, obviously you're putting yourself at a risk. So yes, decreasing smoking, decreasing obesity, which kind of causes just anatomically can affect your lung capacity, is a wise decision when you think about it. And in general, we maybe this will be the time, I think we as a nation, as a culture, we're forced to sit and really think about our lives.
It's good.
Encourage everybody to kind of turn off the news for a while. And you got the time now. Go find that exercise routine that you can do on your tablet or on your Roku or whatever that works for you. Try a bunch of stuff out.
Yep.
Incorporate something into your life at this point that you can keep when you get back to the rat race of daily life, because it's going to return. But take the time now to be a little more healthy, and to expand your not just your physical well-being, your mental well-being, your spiritual well-being, your emotional well-being, because all these things play a role in stress formation in your life, be it physical or otherwise. And any kind of stress is a hindrance to you. It's a hindrance to your development and your growth as a human. So I like what you said. Like, this is the time now for those of you who are feeling well. Hey, why not? You don't have the other problem is when you're sitting around a lot, even if it's for a couple of weeks, your body deconditions very fast. So I think that people will be very intentional now on doing exercises that they may not normally do, because maybe you're standing on your feet all day at your job. That's exercise. Or you're walking to the train and you do a lot of commute that involves your body moving. That's exercise. Now you're sitting in your house. Get up, move around. If you got a yard, get outside. Do those kind of things just to keep yourself moving. Yeah,
that's good. I got two more questions for you. I shared with you earlier that with misinformation and just everybody kind of having a voice, we were kind of weary of like vaccines and this whole thing kind of for a moment. And I would text you and I'd be like, what do you think about this vaccine? What do you think about it? And you're like, yo, like, get Levi the vaccines, bro. Like, get him the vaccines, And I was thankful for you. And I told you that this past winter was my first winter in a long time that I got my flu shot. You know what I mean? And it was because of like a lot of the conversations me and you would have. And I was never like really deep into like the conspiracy theories of the vaccines, but I remember having conversations with me, you and Belief, and we would just have these really fruitful conversations about just the science of it and you explaining that to me. So I appreciate that. When do you think we may see a vaccine for this? Like, how soon? Because I heard they got the trials passed in record-breaking time. They're already running trials. They say 12 to 16 months. Is there any chance that they can get a vaccine for this sooner?
I don't even know. Like, vaccine production is a very, very complex procedure. Is that me again?
Yeah, that's you.
I'm sorry. I don't know where it's coming from.
It's all good.
Vaccines are very hard to make. They require a lot of technology. They require a lot of testing. and, at the molecular level, animal level, human level. I think honestly, 12 to 16 months sounds a bit aggressive or optimistic, I'll say. To having a mass-produced vaccine for the whole public.
Yep.
So I'd be surprised if they did it that soon. But it'll be interesting, and you could probably, start this interview when the vaccine comes out for mass use.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how the public perceives it and how many people will do it, or will it just be kind of like out of sight, out of mind, and then they'll think it's a conspiracy.
Yeah. Hopefully not. How long, outside of a vaccine, how long are you expecting? Do you think this thing is going to last?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm already the way the government's, the way they're promoting the social isolation for 2, 3, 4 weeks already where we live. I don't expect this to be a normal spring at all. I'm hoping that the summertime, at least here in Connecticut, and it just probably depends on where you live. I think geography is going to play a big role with how the virus plays out.
Can you explain that? You're talking about just because of some places being warmer?
Well, not just temperature, but population density.
Okay.
So, living between, Connecticut is where I'm at. It's between New York and Boston, 2 large population centers. You're going to have a different effect than, say, Wyoming, or someplace where there's more space, for people for social distancing to make a bigger impact.
Yeah.
Like think about if you're in Brooklyn, which has 5 million people, and you're staying in your apartment, but there's 3,000 people in your apartment building. So, so that's a different experience than even for me, where it's easy for me to be socially distant where I live. I live now next to a wooded area.
Yeah.
I don't have to touch people, but I don't know. This is good. This is a very unique experience, once in a generation experience for us. And,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, as a man of faith, as a man who believes in Jesus, what do you see what do you see happening from that lens? Like, you're a doctor, you can look at this from a scientific standpoint, a natural standpoint, but when you examine what's going on from a spiritual standpoint and what is happening in our culture spiritually, like how do you see this through the lens of Christ?
I think we live in a time where everyone, Christians included, live very anxiety-ridden lives. We stress a lot. We worry a lot. And what I'm finding, something like this, and then for me, in my unique case of most likely coming into contact with it and, worrying about putting people at risk, having faith can really, give you that deep sense of peace, understanding that your existence here is a phase of your existence, that there was some, that there's more after this life. It really, really changes your view of something so seemingly catastrophic versus another person. And I'm not going to tell people how to witness to their faith or how to share the gospel, but I think it's important to share that peace you have with those who may not have. And that's how that evolves into a conversation about Christ. You let the Holy Spirit lead you in that way. But it's very important for you to have that yourself. And if you don't have it, ask the Lord to help your unbelief and help build your faith. And then if you do have it, it's much more important for you to not keep it to yourself.
Amen.
This is a time, you can't physically talk to someone. You can't, but you can call them. You can check on them through various ways, text, social media. You can find ways of telling them why you feel, secure. And I think people are open more than ever to hearing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't lead to them joining you at your church service, you can plant seeds that will grow in people, and that at some point they may reflect on and be like, wow, that was really deep what he said to me at that point. And then they may come to you, or they may go to someone else. That's our role, is to share that love that Christ gives us with those he puts in our lives and to not, which I think, again, is a more of a Western American way we kind of hoard things.
Yeah.
Though you have joy, cool, share it, expose yourself, expose your
Come
joy
on.
to others, put yourself out there in a way that you may not have done before.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's so many tie-ins. One, for me, I think of somebody mentioned it in the chat, right? Like laying down your life in humility for others, right? That is a Christian principle. This whole like, guys, self-isolate, quarantine yourself. Like basically you could be healthy, you could be whatever, but lay down your right to go and do as you please, to go to the beach and go party. Lay that down for the benefit of others. That is intrinsically a Jesus principle. Whereas, like to your point, herd immunity, Darwinism, it's like, hey, certain population is gonna get it, might as well. Like it's a very like evolutionary standpoint where human dignity and human value is, I feel like, viewed less versus saying, no, let's lay down our rights for the betterment of others. That's a very Jesus. I mean, that's literally like lay down your life for your brothers. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. If maybe you don't have a grandmother or a mother who's in their 60s, 70s and can really, like 1 out of 7, I think is the mortality rate at that age. But that doesn't mean that you should be reckless. You should be humble, lay down your life, right? I think another thing that I'm thinking about is, the National Guard was called by Trump, of course, and I even texted you about some kind of like conspiracy theory text message, like, yo, you hearing this stuff, right? I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday. I said, listen, I don't get no benefit from thinking about the National Guard taking over and telling us what to do and the United States collapsing. I get no benefit from thinking about that. And even if all of that happens and I have to die, I still get to die and go be with Jesus. So my worst case scenario is I get to go to heaven. You know what I mean? So like faith is literally driving everything about this. But let me ask you like a scientific question on this. I think faith is everything. I think how you view the world, how you view these things is going to determine how you behave, right? What you believe determines how you behave. Is there any scientific side that you know of where our thoughts are things and what we believe dictates our atmospheres, right? And I don't mean to jump into like a weird, like name it and claim it prosperity vibe, you know what I'm saying? But like, I do believe that like, if I'm confident that I'm going to be okay, if I'm confident that God has this, if I'm confident that, that like my faith is driven the same way you see, through Jesus, but because of Jesus, I have this confidence and I have this hope and I have this faith. Is there a scientific side of this on how that affects my body, how that affects my mood, how that, not I'm not saying I can manifest things with my thoughts, but I could definitely chemically, I feel like, control and like contain my own anxiety and my own fear. Would you agree that from a scientific standpoint?
I think that, we need a little background, right? I think that we can get all philosophical, I guess, but a lot of the separation from science and religion really, goes to the Enlightenment period. Mm-hmm. So, and then for us, and then it kind of like backflows into especially our westernized Christianity, whereas we often think of our faith as cerebral, we often think of our relationship as like this virtual thing, but Christ came to the earth divine and human, like it's a whole being experience to be a Christian per se, or life in general. So yes, what you're thinking, your thoughts, they're forget scientific. Yeah, they set off certain neurochemicals that made for you or bad for you. Mm-hmm. So I definitely think that I'm not going to prove the power of positive thinking. I don't think you think your way out of meningitis. Or something like that. But I think that having less mental stress will lead to less physical stress on your body, because those chemicals that get released in your brain when you're under stress, they don't just stay in your brain. They go to your heart, they go to your liver, they go to your kidneys, they go to your intestines. Which is why you often see people with anxiety often have, say, irritable bowel syndrome or vice versa.
Because the physical, emotional, and the spiritual are all connected.
Yeah, they're all connected. you know. But again, I'm not saying, I think there's limits to that. Like, if you have strep throat, you know, you probably should take amoxicillin. You shouldn't just think it away.
Amen.
Or,
Here, I'm going to show you this meme. Tell me if you've seen this meme. I'm going to pull it up on the screen where you're at. Dang it. Hold on. Give me 1 sec. I think this is hilarious. But let me know if you've seen this or if you can see this. My wife sent this to me yesterday. Can you see that? Hey, Debbie, it's me, the Lord. Listen, you need to stop telling Facebook that your health is in my hands. You're going to have to wash your hands in quarantine with everyone else, okay? I think that totally captures what you just said. That meme right there.
I don't think Christ ever told us not to have common sense.
Right.
I mean, yeah, there are times when the miraculous will happen, but we're not called to be foolish.
Yep.
You know.
Amen.
You know. Yeah.
Amen. Any final thoughts? Any final, words of advice for people that are maybe a little freaked out about this? What do you want to leave people with?
I'm going to say, do your best to stay calm, to put others' welfare ahead of your own at all times, and to be wise with where you go, how you interact with the outside world, and wash those hands and stay as clean as you can. I think that's all I got.
Amen. If you guys got any questions in the chat, feel free to ask those right now. It's nice that you guys can laugh and bring peace in this time. Stay up. Appreciate that, man. Thank you. I think this is an interesting time. I think I remember 9/11 happening. I remember how it brought the country together, even if it was just for a brief period of time. I remember the crash of 2008 and the financial strain it brought. And this almost seems like an extended version of both. Like, that's the only thing I could compare it to in my lifetime, is that it's like both of those moments combined, and we all have to stay at home for months.
It's funny. I was talking to my wife about this because we were in New York during 9/11. I was working in the hospital, and just being, I wasn't on the hospitals that were on the front line were really down in the neighborhood where 9/11, World Trade Center. Mm-hmm. But being on guard, ready, waiting for this cataclysm to head your way, it was really a changing experience. You really see how quickly your life is altered, and then you develop new normals. We lived a new normal after 9/11. We lived a new normal after all these school shootings and stuff like that. After all these things, and there's going to be a new normal after this passes, where we're not going to just walk around in bubbles. I don't think that's going to happen, but we're going to view our symptoms and illness and the health and welfare of those we love a little differently.
Yeah, and hopefully, as divisive as this time is politically, as divisive as this time is socially, hopefully we see more of the country come together. Hopefully we get back to a desire for facts and science, and not just whatever spin somebody, whatever YouTube page you want to find, but whatever political spin or scientific spin, that we get to valuing credible sources again. Because that's a thing that I think we went through that, and me and you have talked about that with the whole anti-vaccine movement, and just people kind of throwing science out the window for a couple years, and then how we saw these rises in polio and meningitis, all these things come back because you had a window of time where people just disregarded facts and science. You know what I mean? And a lot of us were kind of pulled into that. Because again, I told you, me and you would have conversations about this stuff and what vaccines to get, how does it work, So I'm hoping we see that. Do you think there will be, economically, do you think that we'll be able to bounce back from this the way we did from 2008, the way we did from 9/11? Obviously, there's going to be a ton of small businesses that shut down, and people are going to, it's going to be some hard times. But do you see us bouncing back economically from this?
Well, hard for me to speak from a finance perspective, but having lived through all that, and I think that we kind of entered this in a time where we had a lot of vulnerable populations on the small business, working class, people that of less means were already struggling. I think this will be a very big impact on them and on the other classes of people and on the way businesses are structured. In healthcare in particular, probably will change a lot about how care is delivered. And I think we got some lean times ahead, but once we figure it out, or once it goes about its way, from that perspective, I think we'll go back to our other baseline problems that we were having before this all happened.
Yeah, that's interesting. You said the baseline problems. I think a lot of our baseline problems come from such a huge access to excess, such a huge access to having whatever we want, eating whatever we want, doing whatever we want. And now that's limited. You can't just do, and you know what I mean? Here's a great question from my boy Nate. He said, what are some of the most credible sources you trust and listen to? Who do you go for just credibility?
CDC, Center for Disease Control. Number one, they're on the front lines. They send us guidelines almost every other day. The American Academy of Pediatrics, that's of course because I'm a pediatrician, so they help me guide how I practice every day, and I'm listening to them. And then I think those would be the main ones. Local departments of health will give you good insight into your neck of the woods of where you live, and whether they have good internet resources or not. I guess it depends on where you live, but I would trust them. But you might want to access them through that information through your primary care providers if you have them. Any
YouTube channels or podcasts you would recommend that are kind of following this, what you would say in a healthy, scientific, balanced way that you could think of?
That's a good question. I don't know offhand. But if I do, if I find anything good, I'll shoot you a link to something.
Yeah, I'll bring one up to you guys that let me pull it up right now, Nate. I've been watching. He's a doctor that's I think currently under quarantine, and I believe he's in Great Britain. His name is the channel is Midlife Crisis. Midlife Crisis is the channel. I'll put it here. I feel like his stuff is pretty solid, and he just gives really good scientific balanced information on kind of a lot of what we talked about. And he does it in like a shorter vlog format. I think they're like 10-minute videos. I'll send you some of his stuff. But I found his stuff very, very good. Yeah, I'm sending you his stuff now, but I think you like his stuff. He's just doing his best to get science out to people and being okay with like changing his mind on stuff. You know what I'm saying? That like, oh, this wasn't this changed from week to week. The CDC came out with something new about this. I'm sending it to you too, Nate. Sweet, man. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Maddox. You're kind of on social media a little bit. I don't know if anybody wants to reach out. What are your handles on? I think you're on Twitter, right?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I guess I'll get back on Twitter. But
there you go.
You can find me at Doc Maddox. At Doc Maddox. I'm on Instagram too.
You on Instagram? You don't ever post on Instagram.
I don't never post anything. I'm a lurker. I'm in the shadows.
Doc Maddox. Okay, I am following you. Yeah, your last post was like 2017, bruh. Your last post was 2017 on Instagram. It's all good. But yeah, Doc Maddox on all platforms. Maddox with 2 Ds. You guys can reach out if you guys got any questions. Don't send him any vaccine conspiracy theory articles, please. That's like a trigger warning.
No trigger warning. Just it may not get responded to.
Well, thank you so much for hopping on, man. Appreciate you just bringing some perspective, some hope, some science, some medicine, some practicality. I feel like we covered a lot in this, and I hope that you guys who watch this found it valuable.
Thanks, man. This was great.
We'll do it again sometime.
Stay safe, everybody.
All right, guys, make sure you like this video. Didn't mean to do that. Make sure you like this video. Give it a thumbs up. If you guys got more questions, maybe we'll have Dr. Maddox on again as this thing develops. I think the overall message is stay calm, get healthy. You know what I mean? This is the time to make those lifestyle changes. You have the time. Avoid groups, self-quarantine, like lay down your life for the benefit of others, guys. And faith, hope and love. Like, but the greatest of these is love. Thanks, Nate, for posting that in the comments. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Thank you so much.